All right. Welcome back into another edition of Jake's Takes. I am your host, Jake Massucci, and today I am super excited for another edition of the show. I got on my guys. I got Matt Griffin and I got AJ Massucci. How we doing, guys?
I'm great, man. The Pistons got their first win last night. Not much beats that, even though they beat a hopeless Sixers team without their two best players. But other than that, it was a great win. So I'm fired up and ready to talk some NBA.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Matt, how we doing?
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat. I'm doing well, feeling good after the win, despite it being, like AJ said, a undermanned Sixers team. We were underdogs, so we weren't supposed to win that game. We did, so I'm happy with it. Can't be mad. Although I will say I just got home from work, but the reason that it took me longer, I had to stop at the house in Midland and pay a ticket, and that sucked. But other than that, I'm good.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right, for sure. Well, I'm happy you're joining us after that. That can be a real buzzkill. So hopefully the podcast brings you back up. But yes, sir. All right, well, you guys actually went to Pistons Celtics, and I kind of want to center on this one to start. It'll give us a good talking point to talk about the Pistons so far and the Celtics. Celtics are 4-1, looking like one of the best teams in the league. Again, I mean, they're just awesome to watch, the team basketball and how they're flowing together. And then the Pistons, we've seen some strides. So let's start with the Pistons first. Matt, you've really been covering the Pistons. So talk to me about what you've seen with Detroit and how we've been looking so far.
Yeah, I think, it's kind of tough because the record's not good, and the only team that they've beaten is like we mentioned, an undermanned 76ers team without Joel Embiid or Paul George. However, all their losses are against good teams too. A close one to the Celtics. They were kind of in it with the Cavs for a while. A close one to the Pacers. That's three of the best teams in the conference. Miami as well. So the results haven't quite been there. You could look at the record and say, "Oh, this team doesn't look super different from last year." But as somebody who watched them last year and has watched them up to, it is different. It's very different. I think that, I don't think Jamie Bickerstaff is a world beater of a coach, but I think that he provides a baseline level of competency that wasn't there last year. And watching the games, particularly on the offensive end of the floor, the defense we can get into a little bit, but I mean the personnel on that side of the ball is just putrid. So there's only so much you can do. But even offensively, just a general understanding of modern philosophies of basketball, space and emptying corners and using guards as screeners and things like that. I'm not going to sit up here and tell you he's Mark Daigneault or Will Hardy, but it's been nice to watch the young guys play in a context that resembles other NBA teams.
I could not agree more. And I've said on this podcast, this platform before, that Monty Williams should be sued for breach of contract. Yeah. I think that the level of competency, like Matt said, is unbelievably improved from last year, and evidence of that alone is Jaden Ivey's performance through these first 5 games. I mean, he's averaging, I believe, north of 20 points, shooting it well. At least he's trying on defense, which is cool. And then you look at Killian Hayes, who got cut from the Brooklyn Nets. Sorry, Matt.
Signed by their G League team. He's in Long Island.
All right. But he was starting games over the franchise's second or third most important player. I mean, that's just coaching malpractice at its finest. And now he gets to do what he really wants to be doing, is being a head coach of a high school team with a bunch of 5-stars. So, that's kind of just my feelings on that. So I'm happy to have JB Bickerstaff along. But from how they're playing so far, I think they're competitive and they're competent. They're not good, but I mean, we'll kind of go through it here, but I had them in my preseason, kind of predictions at 30 wins, which is more than double their last year prediction. And I had them as the 10th seed in the Eastern Conference, which means they're playing in the play-in tournament, which would set a record for most losses to ever make a play-in. But we don't really care about that. They're fun to watch. Cade's a lot of fun. I love watching Stu come in off the bench and almost get in a fight every single night. They got shooters now. And then I guess they have Tobias Harris, who kind of is bringing us down. But It's a fun team to watch. They play hard. I'm really excited. Ron Holland's been fun. He's like, he belongs, I would say, is fair, but you could still tell that he's like trying to figure it out. And I can't wait for Sarr to come back because he might be the most fun player on this team to watch.
Yeah. I mean, you can tell with them, like, Cade is on another level. He looks awesome right now. He's been playing really, really good, scoring the ball, and he's just like, you feel safe as a Pistons fan when he has the ball, which is awesome.
When he's looking to score, I feel pretty safe with him having the ball, but like he's averaging just too many turnovers, and they're so dumb. Like there's like, I love Cade Cunningham. You will not find maybe there's a couple that are bigger Cade guys than I am. Like I am all in on him, but he makes some of the dumbest plays, dumbest fouls that I've ever seen from like a superstar guy and a guy that's been a superstar player his entire life. But other than that, I just need to get that back in.
Fair.
He is awesome.
Fair.
He's awesome.
Yeah. Like when I watch the games, like I'm looking at like comfort level and stuff like that. I'm looking at, okay, like when do I feel like our offense is at our best? And it's whenever Cade touches the ball. When Cade's off the floor or Cade's like not touching the ball on the start of the possession, I'm like, all right, what are we doing? Like there's no flow to the offense. Tim Hardaway's like hoisting up a three where I'm like, what's going on? Stuff 50%, like that.
By the way.
Yeah, that's true. He has been shooting really, really well. And, there's been pieces that have been really improved. I feel like Duran's playing really well. He's rebounding at a high clip. There's some stuff that I like with this Pistons team. I'm more high on the Cade part. But talk to me a little bit about like these last few games. You guys saw him in person against a really, really good Celtics team. So talk to me about like the feeling of watching them in person. I'll start with you, Matt, on this one.
I mean, I've never been the guy that thinks like you get way more out of watching a team in person than you do on TV. Like it's probably about even. You might be a little bit more locked into the game. Maybe it's different if you're like courtside or something like that. I understand that. But to kind of build off of what you guys both have said, well, one, watching them in person, like the energy in the building when they made a run was definitely real. And you could tell that they were feeding off of that, which was fantastic to see. I've never heard LCA that loud. I've also never been to a game where there's even that many people. And it wasn't like full, but it was fuller than I've really ever seen it for a Pistons game. Maybe aside from like a season opener I went to a few years ago. Like that stuff is great to see. But I think like to me, the one thing that's really excited me about this Pistons season, I mean, we can quibble about Duran. Jake, you mentioned you feel like he's playing really well. I'm a little bit more indifferent with his play up to this point. Like I'd probably lean more towards like the defense is getting more concerning than anything is exciting about him.
Fair. Yeah.
Because now we're in year 3 and you kind of got to be an NBA player on that end. But he is only 20. But watching Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham play together, and it feels like they're both like Jaden Ivey surviving when Cade is off the floor, but when they're on the floor together, it feels like both of those guys make each other better. Like Cade having a real release valve that can get downhill makes him better. It just makes the offense flow more. He's not as relied upon to score because when Jaden Ivey's off and Cade is on, it's like full on Helio. Everything is Cade. Like, and that's not great. Like that. You don't really want to have to put that much on the young guy's shoulders unless that young guy's like literally Luka Doncic. So I don't know. It's good to see. Like I feel very, very good about the backcourt for the future. Like I feel like we've got our 1 and our 2 pretty locked in. Jaden Ivey, he's a guy who could, if the team gets much better, like he could be a guy that could come off the bench, whatever. But I think that the concerns of those two guys fits together aren't really valid anymore.
Fair.
Yeah. So one of my main takeaways, you mentioned that you've liked what you've seen from Duran. Matt said that he's kind of indifferent on it. I'm very anti Jalen Duran. I just think he's a backup. He's a backup center, and there's nothing wrong with that.
He's probably the worst starter in the league right now.
Yeah, and I mean, he just that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. But like he doesn't like the two in my like perfect big. You got to shoot threes and defend at the rim, and Jalen Duran does neither of those things. So and the things that he's above average at is like an offensive rebounder and is a lob threat on offense, and like that's just backup center material, in my own opinion. And I really am a big fan of Isaiah Stewart. I know that there's some offensive concerns, but defensively, he is 20 points better per 100 possessions than Jalen Duren is currently. And the offense doesn't drop off at all when Stu's in. I think it's maybe like within a point. So, I know it's only 5 games, but that's a concerning level of defense, of gap between the most important defense position on the basketball floor at any single time. And I also don't think we're even using him right on offense. He shot almost 40% from 3 on volume last season, and he's only taken 1 this entire season. So I think there's kind of some low hanging fruit there that I hope that JB kind of gets out of Isaiah Stewart or goes back to. Maybe that's the one good thing that Monty Williams did, was encourage Isaiah Stewart to shoot some threes. But I'm just but I'm very encouraged with what I see. The energy's great. The turnovers are very annoying. But they play hard. I like it better. One thing I would like to see improve, and I mentioned this to Matt during the Celtics game, is like it seems like a lot of the time they get in, especially when Kate brings up the ball, they get into their sets around like 17 or 12 on the shot clock. Mm-hmm. I like to see them push it a little bit more just to get in those sets and then you have an extra 6 seconds to try to score rather than walking the ball up. But I also understand, like, especially playing the Celtics, like trying to slow the game down a little bit, less possessions, more time for kind of randomness. But I would like to see them push it a little bit. I think that's when they're at their best, even if that means like Ivy bring up the ball a little bit more.
I like that.
To AJ's point about when the offense is getting into action and getting into it late, heading into last night's game against the Sixers, they were 26th in pace, which is abysmal for a team with the makeup that we have, and that's having played like the Pacers already like having played high-paced teams.
And when you have Jaden Ivey, when you have Jaden Ivey, who's one of the fastest players in the NBA, like that's just like kind of leaving a lot of low-hanging fruit on the table.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't know if you guys or how dialed in you were to that Sixers game. The Sixers played maybe the worst 48 minutes of transition defense I've ever seen. And so the pace is probably higher now after that game than it was, just because literally wide open layups, like relatively consistently. It is a problem. You're right. Like that is a piece of low hanging fruit, like AJ said. Because I feel like in the preseason in particular, there was a real emphasis on pushing the pace. There was an emphasis not only after misses, but after makes, getting the ball up the floor, catching the defense on their heels, getting early two-man actions. A lot of times trying to get Jaden Ivey downhill against a defense that isn't set yet. Like that's really good offense if you're able to do that. I mean, he's not going to score every time. He's still got to get better around the rim, no doubt. But when you can put that type of pressure on the paint, like you're probably going to generate good offense at some point.
I agree.
What do you guys think for the Pistons this year? Do you think are you guys optimistic? Like, do you still have the play-in hopes that you had, or what do you think?
I don't think 30 wins. I actually have them here at 28.5, so I rounded up to 29.
Okay.
But I don't think like a play-in berth really means anything. Like, it would be great for them to get the experience, but I only have them in the play-in because I think the bottom of the East is so bad. Now the Hornets have looked pretty good through 2 weeks, but how long is LaMelo going to stay healthy?
Yep.
You got Chicago, who has their top 10 protected pick that they want to keep. Otherwise it goes to, I think, the Spurs, the Wizards, and the Nets. I mean, the Nets didn't trade back for their pick for no reason. The Raptors are now like injured, and Scotty Barnes out for 4 weeks. That's not good for an already thin team. Like, I just think that the East is so bad that like they might, like, having a competent season would put them in the play-in tournament. So that's kind of more so. I just want to see competency, and Cade and Ivy continue to be good. I'd like to see Stu shoot some more threes. I want to see some more flashes from Ron Holland, and I want to see Asar look like an NBA player on offense while still maintaining his defensive level that he showed last year.
I like that. Matt, what about you? What do you think for the Pistons this year?
Yeah, play-in is definitely obtainable. I think that it's possible that they make the play-in by simply being a team that does not outright tank, like with 25 games left, because the bottom of the East is just so abysmal. Now, would I predict it, or do I think they're the 10th best team in the East? I don't. I do think Charlotte's probably better than us, but like AJ mentioned, I mean, a lot kind of falls on the health of LaMelo's ankles. Finally wearing ankle braces. Took a long time for him to figure that out, but that's a good sign. Playing is within reach. I am curious to see kind of how they navigate the end of the season, if they are kind of like vying for that 10th spot, but it's sort of like, I don't know, like how bad, getting the experience might be great. It's going to be one game, and then you're probably going to lose and be done. So,
well, not if you're playing Atlanta. You have a shot.
True.
You do have a shot. You do have a shot.
Now the next game, like, we'll see, but and then also it's like then you just go play the Celtics and get absolutely murdered.
Right.
So like it'd be a lot of fun, but at the end of the day, like it's a chance to get murdered by the Celtics, which I think is still a great experience. But then you also like lose out on a good player in the draft with a draft class that is so loaded, like this upcoming year is supposed to be.
I like it.
Yeah,
I like it.
No doubt.
Yeah. Moving on a little bit, we covered the Pistons a lot, so let's go around the league a little bit. I got questions throughout, so we'll just go through a couple questions. It's been a week, okay, so we've seen about 5 games from each team. So throughout those 5 games, who do you guys think has been the most, like when you're turning on League Pass or turning on NBA, who do you want to turn on? Who do you want to watch play? Matt, I'll start with you on this one.
It's the same. If you asked me this question at the same time last year, I would have had the same answer. It's LaMelo Ball for me. He's been outstanding. He's also got some turnover problems thus far this year, but that hasn't been as consistent, like a huge red flag with him as it is Cade. So I don't know how concerned I am, but LaMelo's been shooting the lead off the ball. Like he's taking one leg threes with consistency. He's probably taken 10 of them this year. I've seen him make at least 5 of them. He just plays with such a level of confidence and like a certain flow that I don't think there's even 4 or 5 players in the league that can really touch that level of shot making with that level of passing. Like he's one of the best passers in the world at 6'7". He can shoot from anywhere. He's happy to shoot from anywhere. Defensively, like, there's still a lot to be desired, but particularly game 1, I thought the intensity looked different than it really ever has for LaMelo. And that's probably a big credit to Charles Lee. And I just I like a good bit of Charlotte's team. Like I really like Trey Mann. At least I really, really like watching him. I don't know how much I'd love him on like the Pistons, but I do like watching him a lot. He's cosplaying Allen Iverson, which is fun. They're playing Grant Williams at the 5. Like that stuff's kind of interesting because they don't have Mark Williams. So I don't know. It's been Charlotte for me. I think that's kind of where I land when I'm surfing League Pass, unless there's 2 good teams playing each other.
I like it.
Yeah, mine, I would kind of just default to the Dallas Mavericks.
Okay.
I really Luka's awesome. We talked about him all postseason last season, and I don't even think he had a particularly great postseason run, even though they made it to the finals. And then just like with the addition of Clay, watching Kyrie go for 37 or 35 the other night against who are they playing? They were playing the Timberwolves. They've also been a fun team. Like any team with a new addition through the first week, I feel like is almost must watch television. And then I also I kind of like watching the Cavs. I know
that's a good one.
Their team's basically the same, but like a reinvigorated Darius Garland, fresh off jaw surgery, had a down season last year, but he's been awesome. Evan Mobley's been good. Jared Allen's been good. And Kenny Atkinson's just like a pro's pro of a coach. Like talk about a guy that got a raw deal in Brooklyn. I wanted the Pistons to hire him, but we still had Monty Williams at that point in time when he was already hired by the Cavs. And plus, I think he wanted the Cavs job anyways. I would have too.
Yeah.
But so like they're just like a fun team that's actually doing some things on offense that like modern NBA teams do, and we've kind of seen it. I just think it's a fun story to watch, and like it also shows the difference that a coach can make. Not like when he's incompetent like Monty Williams and we're seeing here in Detroit, but like just like offensive philosophy in like a good team with the same personnel for the most part. And they're playing a lot more effectively after the first 5 games.
Adding on to that, I think the Lakers are a perfect example of that too. They're playing a lot better with the new coach and similar kind of personnel. And I think the new voice can really, really help with that aspect of it,
Yeah, I agree. But so I got to take, we want to do Lakers now?
If you want to.
Well,
I want to touch on Cleveland.
Okay.
Yeah.
You touch on Cleveland first.
Will do. I think You're right. They have been a fun team to watch. I'm glad that you brought them up. I've always liked watching Cleveland because, I don't know, something about Jared Allen. I just love Jared Allen. I think he's so good. Like top 25 level good. I really do.
He is what Jalen Duren should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you made Jalen Duren all defense caliber, like
exactly.
thin air.
Exactly.
Yeah. But yes, you're right. Like it is kind of similar. Like the skill sets offensively are a little bit similar. Like rim running, really good. Like they both finish really well around the rim. They both kind of have like pretty big time passing juice, like relative to position and stuff like that. So that's fair. But Jared, like defensively, Jared Allen's just continues to get better, and obviously it flies under the radar because he's just Jared Allen, and it's just the defensive side of the ball. But like last year, I feel like I kept seeing him getting more and more versatile. It's like, all right, he's mixing in more switches, And then this year, I think it feels like, I don't have the numbers, but it feels like he's switching way more, and it looks really good. He had some great reps on Cade in that game, switching onto him, and I mean the Dallas like. Very fun. Garland being back, like he's a fun player to watch. I love Donovan Mitchell too. But the biggest thing for Cleveland for me up to this point has been the play of Evan Mobley. And we always knew that he was good. But it feels like Atkinson has really empowered him as a ball handler up to this point. And seeing him, navigate that, and you're seeing him take like he'll sprinkle in a pull-up three here and there, and he's, flowing into handoffs wherever he can, and he's like getting downhill every now and again. Like I've really enjoyed the Evan Mobley experience up to this point. I do have a question about the Cavs though. So like made about their roster and how it doesn't like very talented but doesn't feel optimized, particularly because of the double bigs. Like Evan Mobley at the 5 is probably like where you're going to land one day. Like in an ideal world, you're going to land with him at the 5 because that's where I think the stuff that makes him special is going to pop the most is when he's at the 5. But Jared Allen's a really good player, so I also understand just wanting to keep him, and he's on a very good contract, so like it's kind of tough to talk yourself into trading that guy. But you look at Boston, and that's kind of the bar you have to clear. I wonder if it makes sense to just roll with the double bigs because to deviate from what Boston is trying to do because you're not going to out Boston them. So like I kind of don't hate the Cavs as like a sleeper, give the Celtics a tough series team just because they're at least different and still extremely talented.
I totally agree. That's kind of like my next point right now. And the thesis that I kind of have with the Knicks is you're not going to out Boston. Yes. Especially when you're thinner than Boston and your center can't guard a rock. So like I totally agree, and I think that's why the Pacers gave them a really hard time last year, is because they play like up tempo, up and down, shoot a lot of three. Like they also like kind of have a similar style, but they also like do it in a different way with like full court pressure and like there's a million different things that they do to kind of give the Celtics fits. And I think it like an optimized version of Cleveland. And I think an optimized version of the Sixers would be the two toughest matchups for Boston to face because they didn't really have, like, I know they played Cleveland last year, but they played like 2 games of Darius Garland and 0 games of Jared Allen. So, like, I think an optimized version of the Cavs, especially on offense, compared to where they were last year, and then like a healthy version of the Sixers would like just give the Celtics something we haven't seen them have to face yet.
Yep.
And I think those are like the main two in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah. No, this is what I liked about the Cavs 2 years ago. This is why I picked them to make the finals. I was 2 years early.
What happened? What happened 2 years ago?
And they lost in the first round. Okay, I take it on the chin. All right, I take it on the chin. But I mean,
I think Mitchell
like
Robinson
this
is still getting offensive rebounds from that series. They're still marking them down.
This is the version of the Cavs that I saw that could give the Celtics fits. Because if you were picking Eastern Conference that year, nobody saw Miami making the finals. Nobody. So you were looking at it and it's like, okay, the Celtics, who's going to be, I guess, yeah, but it would be the Celtics or the, not the Cavs. Nobody thought that. I was the only one that picked them, but like it was the Celtics or somebody else, right? And that's what everybody thought, and it didn't end up being that way. So looking at it now, it is refreshing to see the Cavs look this good, but I will never talk myself into the Cavs again. I just won't. I'm too scarred. But Garland looks a lot better. You talked about the jaw thing from last year. He looks a lot better now. And I love watching them play. They're just a fun team to watch right now. I think they're going to be a really good regular season team. We'll see what happens in the playoffs. I'm excited to see like how Atkinson changes up things during the playoffs, because we haven't really seen Atkinson as a playoff coach. So I'm excited for that aspect of it too. I think my answer to this question is still the Celtics. The Celtics are just they're just so much fun to watch offensively and defensively. I can't get over Derek White. I can't get over Drew Holiday, and the way they play as a team. I was rewatching some of the NBA Finals, and I was watching Ben Taylor cover it, the Thinking Basketball guy, and he talked about how like adjusted box plus minus as a team, they had like the most points per game for a starting five in NBA history, as playing as a team. And to me, that's just unreal, because they just move the ball. It's constantly moving all over the place. And it seems like they're just shooting more threes than ever. They shot 63s on opening night. That's just insane. And it's making people talk about, should we move the 3-point line back? Should we do these random things to change the game? What do you guys think about that? I want to talk about
I am pro move the 3-point line back. It's too easy for these guys. They're too good. It would make 3-point the Steph Curry of the world, the like 2 years ago Damian Lillard of the world, even more valuable.
Yeah.
I think it would be fun. The NBA is the only professional league in the world to not move the line back
in the last 10 years.
Because it was already back. It's not like other leagues are further.
Yeah. I'm not saying like
they haven't moved back in the last 10 years.
Furthest,
everybody else moved.
They're the most talented. Like, we're not asking them to move the rim to 11 feet. We're just asking them to move the line back a little bit. I also on that topic, I have no idea how this would work, but I think it's really interesting of Joe Mazzulla saying that instead of taking free throws, we should do a 5-on-4 penalty play. It's a 5-on-4 possession rather than free throws.
That'd be crazy.
I think that'd be cool. I think we'd see a lot of cool stuff from coaching staffs, especially in those first couple of years. I have no idea how it would work, but I'm into it. I like the idea. Overtime elite, you guys should implement that. The G League should implement it. I think it would be fun.
Matt, what do you think?
They should have let us. They should have given us a SAR and a men 5-on-4s. That would have been sick. They're. I don't know. I'm relatively anti-rule change generally. I think that we're just within an offensive boom. At some point, defenses are gonna kind of figure something out. It's not. We're never gonna return to 2004 78 offensive ratings running around the league and stuff like that. But I do think league is more talented than ever, particularly offensively. You watch Boston, no team in the history of basketball can recreate exactly what they're doing. No team that's ever been assembled. So I get the idea of moving the line back. I wouldn't hate it. Like AJ said, I think that the idea of them being able, of it making a Steph or a Dame or a LaMelo or anybody who feels comfortable shooting from 28 feet, making those guys a little bit more valuable. I am kind of interested in that. Right, that type of stuff is interesting. I've heard claims to widen the court. That feels a little aggressive.
I think that would just be to include the corner three.
Yeah, just make it a little bit further.
Right,
because it's shorter than the top of the arc three, which I think is kind of ridiculous as is, but whatever.
It's always been like that though, So it's just kind of how basketball has always been played. I don't know. I think most of if there's any rule change that I'm for or anything like that to try to slow down offense, just allowing more contact at the rim, at points of contact and stuff like that. I'm cool with that. I don't think that there needs to be any major overhauls, I would say. I also think the product is fucking sick. So there's
I agree. But also I just want the NBA to call games like they did the second half of last year and in the playoffs. Yeah, all of a sudden now the foul rate is up way higher, and the BS foul drawing that you see Trae Young do all the time is now working again. Make up your mind, NBA.
I wonder how much of the free throw rate being back up is accredited to that game where the Sixers and whoever it was combined for 110 free throws.
I don't know. I know the Atlanta Hawks are number 1 right now because of Trae Young. Yeah, and he's been getting the line a lot. But that's another. I think we're a little bit off topic now. But I think
anybody told Kate about this foul baiting stuff? I'm just curious.
I have no idea. He doesn't get calls anyways. Him and Jaden Ivey just do not get calls.
I think it's
all right. Well,
It's not
All
just
right,
a
well, that's
Pistons
going
thing
to
because
lead us
Alec Burks got
into
all the calls in the world when he was here.
Alec Burks is the man, though. He's the man. But that's going to lead us into a little break. We're going to talk more questions when we get back. We'll be back in a sec. All right. Welcome back into the show. And we're going to continue rolling. We're going to go through some questions. So this is a little segment of who should we continue to worry about these teams because they haven't started out great. And I kind of wrote down a couple of these teams here. Let's start with Milwaukee because it's been a really tough stretch for them to start. They've lost to some not so great teams. So I am curious to hear your guys' thoughts on them. AJ, I'll start with you here. Milwaukee first 5 games. What have you seen? Like, is there anything to take positive from the start? Like, what's going on here?
The one positive is that Damian Lillard looks better than he played last year, and that Giannis is still a top 5 player in the world. But yeah, I would be worried. I would be worried because Giannis has continually stated over and over again that the only thing he cares about is championships. And it doesn't look like the roster around him is good enough to contend. They can't not guard anybody on the perimeter. And if you are any type of guard whatsoever, like you're going to be able to score 30 or get whatever shot you want when you play them. And that is very is not good. And it's like a problem too big for just Chris Middleton to handle alone, especially at age 34 Chris Middleton.
Yeah.
And I'm also starting to see some like rumors swirling on Twitter about Giannis potentially asking out, which would be a fun storyline. But so yeah, like I think you have to be worried because whenever you have a top 5 player in the world, and we're going to get to a few teams with top 5 players in the world that are not competing. I also, and this is kind of a question that I have for Matt as well, is like with these teams, Milwaukee, the Sixers, and the Nuggets, like I think the NBA is too deep. NBA teams are too deep, and the NBA is deep of good quality players that like you can't just. It's not a guarantee that just because you have a top 5 player on your team anymore that you're going to make the playoffs.
Yeah,
and which I think is super fun. It means the regular season means more. Teams are trying harder, and like there's just more good teams, which means more good matchups. And it's hard to win NBA games, so you can't just like kind of limp your way through the regular season. So yeah, I would be a little bit worried as a Milwaukee Bucks fan.
For sure. Matt, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, it is tough. Like, you know, because the talent is kind of real. I just think that, and Giannis is so good that you can't really count the Bucks out. Like that's like if I'm Boston, despite being way better than Milwaukee, probably not a team that I want to see in the playoffs. Like if I can help it, just because Giannis is such a physical like force that one, even if you win the series, you're probably not coming out of it feeling as good as you went into it. Just having to guard him for 5, 6, 7 games. And Dame is liable to win a game by himself, like just straight up.
Yeah.
Any night. He's still that way. But that team is old, man. That team is really, really old. It's why I'm not a big believer in them as a regular season unit. Doc Rivers doesn't excite me enough either to kind of look past it. And it's good that they have continuity and stuff like that, but Chris Middleton doesn't really play very often. Brook Lopez is not the same guy he was even 2 years ago. I think that it's getting tougher and tougher to mask any of the limitations you have because, like AJ said, you don't have like real perimeter guys defensively. Your defense is over-reliant on Giannis, who's also creating a ton of your offense, and that's kind of a little bit of an issue, especially over 82 games. It does feel like this Giannis thing is looming over heads. He's brought up like straight up, I could get traded. If things don't go well, I could be traded. Like he's there's reason that like I've seen probably 7 fan bases in the last 2 or 3 days coming up with their fake ways to get Giannis. Like Rockets fans being like, would you throw Jalen Green into this deal? Would you do this?
Tobias Harris.
So Tobias, yeah, true. Tobias and Dern, straight up. So like the talent is real. I hesitate to count them out. But they do have a ton of problems. And they start defensively, but they have problems offensively as well. I think like the Dame Giannis pick and roll was kind of like the boogeyman essentially when they acquired Dame. I think that we all thought that was going to be essentially the most effective play in basketball. And it's just not really the case. Giannis just isn't really a natural roller. Like that's just not a role that he's ever played. It's not how he's played offense. He doesn't like to roll all the way to the rim. He likes to short roll.
Yeah.
He likes to catch the ball, at the nail and then operate from there. He likes to dribble.
Yeah.
He likes to put the ball on the floor. So it just isn't quite as seamless as we anticipated. AJ's right. Dame does look better. Like, that's reason for excitement or positivity, I guess. But it's just not a very deep team. Gary Trent Jr. is starting. Like, you're starting multiple players who wouldn't start on, even if they're fine. Like, Gary Trent Jr. is fine. He's a fine rotation player. He wouldn't start on most of the real contenders. Like, just straight up.
I think this also is just kind of like a funny point that I will make real quick, is like going off Matt's point of having to start a 2-guard that wouldn't start on almost any other playoff, definitely not any other playoff team. Malik Beasley started for them last year, and he doesn't even start for the Detroit Pistons.
He was their prime. He was like their star stopper. Like, he was guarding Tyrese Halliburton and Donovan Mitchell.
He doesn't start for the Pistons, and I think it's just kind of an overarching theme of like the Milwaukee Bucks with Giannis and Dame.
Yeah.
It's like they just gave up too much and they have no means to improve, and they've kind of aged out of the inner circle of contenders, I would say. Yeah. But like,
it's not just
like
Gary Trent. Taurean Prince also wouldn't start for most good teams.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it goes to show you, like, they spent so much on this Dame trade and it just didn't work because now they can't, like, trim around the edges. Like, there's no role players to really help them. All their role players just get beat off the dribble and can't guard on the perimeter. They're sitting at 26th in the NBA in defensive rating, and you have Giannis Antetokounmpo, one of the best defensive players we've seen. It's just really crazy because you saw them win a championship, and then the next year they don't make it very far, and then they panic and trade everybody and go for Dame.
Well, they had this year that they lost to Boston.
Yeah, a year they lost to Boston,
and then the year that they lost is the 1 seed.
Yeah,
but
it's
concerning, and I'd be really worried about Giannis asking out, because I feel like if it's not at this trade deadline and they don't make it to like an Eastern Conference Finals, I feel like that is very much like a real story to kind of monitor.
Sure.
I think Milwaukee and another team that we're going to talk about in a second, like, this is just kind of the epitome. This is what happens when you miss on the margins consistently, when you aren't hitting draft picks, when you're drafting margin Beauchamps and Livingstons every year. And it's just like, you just have, yes, the ways to add good rotational players are limited, but you still can if you do it right. And they straight up haven't. Like, how badly do they need somebody else to insert themselves into this rotation? And they just have not hit on a guy. They haven't done it. They haven't had like the good underrated signing. They really haven't. They extend Bobby Portis, he drops off, right? And they just haven't been able to. They haven't done anything to pick up any of the slack that their aging guys are kind of leaving.
Yeah. No, I like that. I like that a lot. And the other team you were mentioning is the Nuggets, who their problem is on the opposite side of the ball, which is offensively. It seems like they're struggling with their shooting and all that. So, Matt, I'll start with you on this one. Talk to me about what you've seen from the Nuggets. They're starting, I believe they're 2-3 now, or they're 2-2. One of the two.
Yeah,
but
and like not
overtime
good wins.
Yeah, no, not good wins at all. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, struggle wins against the Nets and things of that nature.
Yeah,
I mean, honestly, like, I'm genuinely upset when I think about the Nuggets because they're wasting one of the best basketball peaks we've ever seen. Because their front office, I mean, it's incompetent. Since Connolly has left, what have they done that's good? They paid Jamal Murray far more than he deserves. He's clearly not that level of player. And they overpaid Michael Porter Jr. by a lot. So those two players are taking up such massive portions of your cap, and neither of them are even all-stars. And you're paying them like they're superstars, essentially, as much as you can. Thank God they aren't eligible for like real supermaxes. He probably would have given it to them. So you've got that looming over your head. Again, another team that just hasn't really won on the margins. They aren't hitting on draft picks in the way that you need them to. Like, Christian Brown was a good pick, but he's like a guy that can play. He's not like a real needle mover by any stretch of the imagination. You could say the same about Peyton Watson, who's still trying to kind of figure it out on the offensive side of the ball. And I know that them and the Bucks, it's not like they're in the lottery area. I get that, but you got to make something happen, right? And I really like Holmes, who they drafted this year, but he's injured for the whole season, so there's that problem. But Their offensive struggles, Jake, you alluded to the shooting, and no doubt about it. This was already a team that was like basically at the bottom of 3-point frequency last year. And it's fine. Like they have the best 2-point shot generator in the league, right? Like the best interior passer, the best low post scorer, the best mid-range scorer. Like he's just unbelievably, like he's just such an outlier in that way that you can live with not being a 3-point heavy team. And even in this kind of high paced era or high volume era. But the means of replacing the threes that they lost, even with a KCP, who wasn't like an 8 attempt, 9 attempt type of guy, but just having his threat, like somebody that could shoot off of a handoff, somebody that could come off of a pin down and let a 3 fly if he needed it. They just don't really have that anymore. Like Brown's been good, but he doesn't do that. And, clearly Jokic is noticing that because it feels like he's just got a completely different approach this season. He realizes that this team lacks offensive talent. This team lacks firepower. He's letting threes fly. He's a pretty inconsistent 3-point shooter himself. Michael Porter Jr. is still going to be aggressive. Like he can up the 3-point volume a little bit. So there's definitely 3-point oriented concerns with this team. I don't think that they make them like dead on arrival, but it might if those concerns are, if you're unable to continue to be like an all-time great 2-point generating team, which could be the case, especially as Jamal Murray continues to look bad. And if the defense can't pick up any of that slack as well, which, I've been fine with their defense up to this point. Early regular season Jokic defense is kind of a weird thing to navigate for me, just because I've seen him turn it on late in the year before, and I don't think that he's been like particularly bad this year, to be clear. But you're even more reliant on Aaron Gordon on that end because you lose KCP. Christian Brown is a fantastic young defender, no doubt about it. But KCP was like real deal, one of like the 5 or 6 best screen navigators in the league. Like had a legit all defense case last year. Might have even crept onto the team if it wasn't positionless. And you lose him, and like this team's just, it's not deep. The bench is horrific. I still trust the starters, even saying all that. Like when Jokic is on the floor, they're going to be good, especially when he's flanked by Gordon and Porter and Murray. But when Jokic is off the floor, like it's, I like Dario Saric. I thought the Russell Westbrook signing was kind of interesting, but it's just not enough. It's not enough, especially in this Western Conference.
Yeah. So I heard a stat today that with Nikola Jokic on the floor, they have a 120 offensive rating, which is, right at the top of the league. And you would expect it to drop to more of a league average or slightly below, maybe like a 105, 110, somewhere in that territory. Do you guys want to guess what it is?
Oh, boy.
Like 88.
With Jokic off the floor.
88.
With Jokic off? Let's go like 0.7.
It was 48.
Oh my God.
This was a quote that I heard on a podcast. So like it was a 72-point disparity.
Oh my
offensively per 100 possessions. Now, obviously that will come back to earth a little bit because that is just so atrociously bad. Like I feel like us three could get
no, I was probably just not. Thinking, like, what would our offensive rating?
Yeah, I mean it would be close to 48, I would think. But I mean it's just like I think the real problem is that like Jamal Murray just isn't the Jamal Murray of the 2023 finals run.
Yep.
And we haven't seen that version of Jamal Murray since
more like
run.
Canada Jamal Murray.
Yeah, like and this also goes back to kind of Kelvin Booth, where like we saw what he did last season. It wasn't very good. He didn't make an all-NBA team. He was bad in the Lakers series until the fourth quarter, and like he hit some miraculous shots, but other than that, he was terrible. He was very mediocre in the Timberwolves series, and then he was terrible in the Olympics. He got benched for Canada. Like he didn't even play for the winners. Played for Canada and got benched. And then he decides to give him, oh yeah, that's a great idea. He's trending in the right direction. Let's give him $220 million. And then like even this Aaron Gordon extension, like how good do you think Aaron Gordon's going to be at age 34? Yeah, probably not very good. So let's be paying him $28 million. Like they're all for this like future-proof theory, and I just don't think that's a good idea when you have a top 5 player in the world and the best player in the world. Most people would agree. A guy that's won 3 MVPs the last 4 years. And I think it's basketball. I mean, Kelvin Booth should be, it's really the Cronkies and Kelvin Booth should both be put in basketball prison for what they're doing because it's very atrocious what is going on for Nikola Jokic.
I think Jokic should ask for a trade straight up.
Yeah,
Like, he
but
should
he won't.
legitimately ask out.
He would
I know he
retire,
won't,
and
but he should.
he would retire and move to
first,
Serbia
yeah.
way before, and ride his horses and race them and whatever he does.
He could, if he came and made the Pistons a contender, he'd literally be the GOAT.
He'd
Just
be the
throwing it
greatest
out there.
player of all time.
That's what I'm saying.
That's the pitch to Jokic. But yeah, so it's just disappointing, really, more than anything. But like, if they get into a playoff, like, they could beat anybody because Nikola Jokic is that good.
Yeah.
And like, I think that they'll figure it out a little bit and they'll be fine. But I don't think like we'll be looking in. I think chances are that we're looking in April and we're saying like, look out for the Nuggets. They might win a series, rather than being like the Nuggets are right there with the Thunder and the Mavericks to win the Western Conference. Like, I think that will be more the discussion rather than like, oh, they might beat the Thunder in round one, or they might beat Team X, the Timberwolves. Like, this is going to be a great series. I'm looking forward to it, rather than the latter. So
yeah. We talked about the Nuggets moves a lot on our off-season podcast, and like, I thought the offense would drop off, and then I was preparing for the show today, and the moment I realized how big of a problem it was is when I looked at the offensive efficiency ratings. They're not even top 15, and that's with the best offensive player we've seen in a long time, like, efficiency-wise. So it's really just flat out insane to me with that. And Jokic has been my favorite player to watch for the longest time. So the fact that they're back to not being like at the top of the NBA kind of sucks. It kind of sucks. So with the Nuggets here, I'm just more disappointed because I love watching Jokic play, and it'll be disappointing to see them as maybe a 6 seed or maybe in that play-in discussion this year. But that's kind of what it's looking like for the Nuggets so far. And I mean, to be honest, like, do you guys think the only move is to just trade for shooting? Is that the only way they get better, or do you think that they can still maintain it with this bad offense?
After their Nets game, Bojan Bogdanovic went up to Jokic and said, "Tell your GM to trade picks for me." So there's that move might be on the table. It's not like, you got to trade for shooting. You do, but like, again, they just don't have a ton of avenues to really do so. Like,
yeah.
I almost think your best bet. I like Strother. Like, I will say, like, I like Strother. I think he's a good offensive player. I think, they need his shooting a lot. If he can hang defensively, which I don't think is completely out of the cards, just hang. I'm not saying even be good, but don't be dreadful. They kind of boxed themselves in to a degree. Like, who are you trading?
Yeah, their only matching salary is really Zeke Naji, who's got a couple years left, around $8 million. But like, there's a limited list of players that you can trade for that will make a difference that are making $8 million. And other teams are also kind of in a similar boat. I mean, there's no NBA team that doesn't need shooting. Every team does.
Yeah.
So like, you're just going to get outbid, and they don't have any of their picks that they can trade. They might have one, but I don't think so. So they've kind of like boxed themselves into like really their only adjustment, and I think it's their best adjustment would be just the play better adjustment. Like, they just kind of got to do what they do, and they just got to play better than what they've been playing, and that comes directly to guys like Michael Porter Jr. and guys like Jamal Murray.
The thing that could be bad with them too is if Jokic goes down, like, they're done.
Oh yeah,
they're
screwed.
Like, they're screwed. So screwed.
And that's the same with
the Bucks.
If like anything happens to Giannis, they're screwed.
Yeah.
Like, there's just, and we'll talk about with this next team, the Sixers.
Yeah.
If we want to just transition to the Sixers,
we can go right ahead.
I just think the NBA is too good right now to kind of get through a schedule when you're hurt. Like, you're not going to be successful. So like, am I surprised to see the Sixers are 1-4 without their two best players? No, I'm not. Like, the Sixers don't have a top 5 player in the NBA and a top 20 player in the NBA. And when they come back, like, I expect them to kind of be at where they're supposed to be. But like, the question is just like, how much are they going to be able to play?
Yep.
And but the good thing is, in the Eastern Conference, like, it doesn't really matter how many losses you have. If you're trying to win, you'll probably at least make the play-in.
Yeah.
So that kind of will benefit them in that territory.
Mm-hmm, for sure. Matt, what are your thoughts on the Sixers so far?
Yeah, I mean, super overanalyzing the games they've already played is probably a little bit unnecessary, just because they are missing two of their three best
Yeah.
players at worst, and one of them being Joel Embiid, who last year was like legitimately doing like Will Chamberlain stuff, like things we haven't seen in 60 years of basketball. So I don't like. It's been weird. Like last night against the Pistons, like they've got to play Yabusele at the 5. Like that, he's just not that. He's like 6'7", 6'8", and he's thick, so he holds up a little bit, but it's not the same. There's no real rim protection. I mean, I think I think a lot of people like Andre Drummond, the backup center. When it's Andre Drummond, the starting center, it's not nearly as fun. And I got to be honest, Eric Gordon is so washed. I don't know how he just keeps winding up on teams that matter and like getting big minutes. And it's just like, geez, he looks like me when he jumps. But it's all going to fall back on Embiid. Like, I have concerns about them, not only just from a roster construction standpoint, and I do think, like, I don't know, there's a little bit to be desired on their wings and stuff like that. And, like, are they going to be relying on, like, Jared McCain for real minutes, especially if Eric Gordon is indeed washed or they figure out that he's washed? I think McCain's, like, a good, smart player. I don't know that he can hold up defensively in games that matter, especially right now. I don't even know who he guards because I don't think he's quick enough to stay with any guards. I almost think he's better at defending wings, but he's small. So, different discussion. But them not being able to build any continuity through the regular season, to me, just because like they're always hurt and two of their best guys are not playing back-to-backs, like to me, that just kind of straight up takes them out of contention. Like you're not going to beat the Celtics when you've played 25 games together. I just don't.
Yeah. No, I agree completely with the Sixers. It's too early to tell just to see like how the stars will be put together. And the one thing that gives me hope there is that Nick Nurse is the coach. And I mean, he's done it before. He's figured it out. So like that kind of gives me hope. And that gave me hope with last year's team. I was like, man, Embiid's got a great coach with him now. Like I'm excited for that. And it didn't really work out last year. This year, I'm excited to see it because there's more talent there. So we'll see. I think we're just waiting for the stars and to see more.
And I also, last point on the Sixers, they got rid of the cancer on their team that is Tobias Harris. So I feel like they can only go up from what happened last year.
That's true.
All right,
I've watched 2 Sixers games, both times. Kelly Oubre. I think last year I was pretty impressed with Kelly Oubre. I have not been this far. So
counterpoint on Kelly Oubre, he seems like a guy, like if he thinks he's the second best player on the team, the ball's going up and like it's his team now. But he might fall back into line when he's like the 5th option.
Fair. That's a good point. Well, I'm really not even as concerned offensively. I feel like last year I was like, oh, Oubre's really kind of defending his ass off.
Yeah, but
on the
see,
ball. This year it's been like it's like Kelly 4 steps behind Kate.
Kelly Oubre's mindset's like, I gotta save myself for offense now.
He's just like,
as soon as when Paul George and Joel Embiid come back, he'll be like, all right, now I gotta play defense again.
I think he'll do something on the basketball court, and then he's just thinking like, I hope someone got a good picture of that so I could post it on Instagram. Which is fair.
That's
if
true.
I looked like Kelly Oubre, I'd probably think that way too. To be clear.
That could lead us into our next question. Will this last? So these teams have been hot out the gates. They're playing well, and the one that really shocked me, and to be honest, I haven't watched too much, so I'm excited to hear your guys' thoughts, is the Bulls. Like they've been playing really well out the gate, and they're winning some games. So, Matt, talk to me about what you've seen from Chicago. Is this the Lonzo Ball effect, or has Lonzo done nothing?
I wish I watched their last game because I've heard this sentiment based on their last game a couple times, but I didn't see it. Lonzo Ball effect. I'm happy to take that. I know that as of before their last game, Josh Giddey's on-off was like a -60. Like they're 60 points better when he's off the floor, but they're not playing modest, so I don't really want to watch the Bulls right now because he's playing like 5 minutes a game. But I have tuned in a little bit just to like kind of feel things out. Yeah, I mean, Kobe White's like really good. I think Kobe White's just really good. I hope that the Giddey experiment's just going to lead to them overpaying him. I think that's the biggest lock maybe ever. But I really like Dosunmu. Like I think if Giddey kind of gets in the way of a guy like that, I think that's a little bit unfortunate. Vucevic has played good basketball after being maybe the worst starter in the association last year. It feels like he's, I don't want to say back, like he was an all-star in Orlando, but he might be back to being like, okay, this guy like really helps you on offense. That's been the big takeaway for me. Patrick Williams still intriguing. I don't know that it's any more than that still, but maybe like twice a game, you're like, this guy might be Kawhi Leonard. You know, the other 45 minutes are not as fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they're good. I don't think they will be good. Just simply for the reason alone that they have their pick top 10 protected. So like if they make the play in, they're going to have they're just going to give up the 12th overall pick, which is front office malpractice. Now
when do you think LaVine gets shut down?
I think he gets traded to the Clippers at some point this season. I think that would be fun. I like LaVine. He's on my fantasy basketball team, so I hope that happens.
He's been good.
Yeah, he's been great, especially in fantasy. And he's a fun player. I just don't like his contract, and that kind of is the case with all the guys on the Chicago Bulls. I'm looking forward to Lonzo Ball next season being on the minimum for the Charlotte Hornets, and I think that would be a lot of fun. But they're really, to be totally honest, I got a do not watch list, and the Bulls are on there.
Wait till Midas gets in the game. They are first in pace.
I'll wait till they play the Pistons, and I'll watch that game to have some takeaways. But I don't know, they're just not they're not fun. Yeah. Well, they are kind of fun. They got fun guards.
Well, they're not.
I like their guards. I don't but they don't anybody on the roster that's over 6'6". I'm just out on. Yeah. Besides maybe Modest. And yeah, I'm just kind of out. The only reasons to watch him is Lonzo Ball's playing basketball, but I don't even know how good he's been. So
yeah. No, that's fair. That's completely fair. I have no takes on the Bulls either. I haven't watched anything. So, that kind of transitions into the next team on this list, and that's the Lakers. The Lakers have been playing good basketball. They're 3-2 right now. They started out 3-0, and they're always the most talked about team. So, I feel like we've seen a lot. We're seeing JJ Redick with the new system, and what he's gotten out of AD has been so impressive, and all the stuff. I don't think people expected the Lakers to look this good out the gate. So I'll start with AJ here. AJ, do you think that the Lakers can legitimately be contenders this year?
It depends what you mean by contenders. Do I think that they can win a playoff series? Maybe two. Sure. I thought that last year. I thought that the year before. But this ESPN garbage that keeps when they keep firing good people, you end up with guys like Kendrick Perkins giving serious NBA takes. And I'm just JJ Redick's been good, but it's not like he's the next
next Pat Riley.
He's not the next Jesus Christ. I'm sorry. They're 3-0 because you know what? Instead of being an idiot like Darvin Ham was, he played the lineup that made the Western Conference Finals. Yeah. It's not that hard. You play the lineup that was, and JJ Redick said it when he came on Zach Lowe's podcast that Zach Lowe asked him who the start. Yeah, RIP because ESPN's.
RIP, man.
Yeah, that was horrible. I agree.
But he asked him, who's your starting lineup going to be? And he goes, we'll be playing the starting lineup that was I think it was plus 12 last season and made the Western Conference the year before. And Darvin Ham decided to start Taurean Prince. What are we doing here? And now credit to JJ. I like that they're running less through LeBron because he's 40 years old. Still the GOAT, but that's a different discussion. And AD's looked the best AD's looked since the bubble. And that's very, very encouraging. And I feel like that's kind of their path to getting back towards the Western Conference Finals. Austin Reeves has looked I think I've said, I don't know if I've said it on here, but I've said in private that Austin Reeves was the most overrated player in the NBA, but he's actually playing like the player he's supposed to play. What every Laker fan thought he was, he's playing like it now.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think that's super fun because I'm all in on that version of player. Rui's looked competent. I'm really out on the D'Lo hair situation that he's got going on.
The blonde, makes all of his mistakes louder.
Yeah, and with the jersey color too, it just doesn't look good. So my opinion hasn't really changed on the Lakers. They got to get there healthy because they are another team that's very thin.
Yeah,
I've kind of liked what I haven't watched closely enough to say for sure, but Dalton Connect looks fun, to say the least.
Redick likes him.
Yeah, well, of course he does.
Redick, of course he does.
So but like we were saying earlier with the Bucks and the and the Nuggets. Like
yeah.
it's hard
Top 5 guys. Yeah.
And what we've said with like a lot of other teams of like a bunch of guys that they have, like they go 9-10 deep. The Lakers don't. And like when you
the Lakers play players who suck.
Yeah, and like they had the 15th or 16th overall pick, and they picked Jalen Hood-Schifino, and then the next 3 picks after that were like Hami Hawkeyes. Like they were 3 like players that would be like, oh wow, he'd be a great Laker, and they just declined Jalen Hood-Schifino's 3rd-year option, which never happens. So it's just like when you make
Killian stayed around for 3 years.
That, yeah, like even Killian Hayes had both years picked up on his option. So like it's just like it's hard to take them as a serious like finals contender. I don't think they're that, because unless somehow they get like LeBron playing like he did a couple years ago. But I don't know. I just think that there's other teams that are better now, but I think that they could still win a playoff series if they get there healthy. But that's always kind of been where I've been at with that.
I like it. Matt, what do you got on the Lakers?
Yeah, I think that this is an improved regular season team. Just JJ's just doing a better job, a far better job than Ham did, extracting all the value that he can out of these lineups. Like, and it is fun. Like, people genuinely are calling him the next Pat Riley. I do think he's going to be very successful, not necessarily just because like he's analytically inclined or because he's smart, but I think that he's just one of those guys who's like a freakishly hard worker and like cares more than anybody. And just like a competitive, like his competitive nature is something that you can't really put a number on or anything like that. But he's going to do the best job that he can. Like I truly believe that. And he is a smart dude. He's capable. So like, he's got him crashing the glass a lot more. Like that stuff's pretty fun, playing a little bit faster when they get the opportunity. I think that they have done a good job with Austin Reeves, especially. Like I really liked his usage. He also changed. Last year he wore a white leg sleeve. Now he wears a black leg sleeve. It looks a lot better. I think that's a big part of his game up to this point. It looks better. Black on the white skin looks better. Trust me. You want it to pop out. But yeah, I mean, I think my biggest Lakers takeaway, one, I don't think that they're a real playoff contender still because, well, I think like they're like defensively on the wing in particular, they just don't have the horses to contend on that level. And like you're bringing it like Jackson Hayes is like your 6th man some nights, or it's like Gabe Vincent or Max. And it's like Gabe Vincent's fine, but other than that, like your bench is filled with players who are not good. Like those lineups are just gonna bleed points when like a guy like Jackson Hayes is in the game. So I don't know. Maybe them getting like Jared Vanderbilt back will make a difference. I guess I'm excited to see a little bit more of how JJ wants to implement him. I know that he teased like some weird zone that they have specifically for Vanderbilt. I don't know.
Yeah, I did hear that.
But yeah, I think that they're a fun team. I'll always love watching LeBron. Anthony Davis has been phenomenal up to this point. Genuinely, like he never gets talked about like this, I think, but like he's one of the best basketball players we've ever seen. Like straight up, Anthony Davis. Like I don't know. There's a handful of guys in our lifetimes who can match what he does on both ends of the floor. I hope as his career starts to dwindle down a little bit, I hope that people keep that in perspective instead of all the injury jokes. But Lakers are fun. They're just not deep enough or good enough on the perimeter defensively, I think.
Yeah. No, I like that. I like that completely. I think the thing that gives me like a little bit of hope with the Lakers when it comes playoff time is that they have 2 guys with very high IQ that will be willing to make adjustments. And I think with JJ Redick, what he'll do with this team is he'll get the most out of them. I like what you guys are saying. It's like they don't have a lot of depth, and like I think if one injury happens, like if Anthony Davis or LeBron James goes down, this is over. It's similar to like a Bucks 76ers Nuggets situation. But like if they got everybody, then I think they're trouble for like almost anybody. And that's because of like what they can do. They're willing to go with whatever. Like the fact that JJ Redick was willing to go away from LeBron in that Suns game where he had 11 points. That's the first time anybody's ever done that in LeBron's career, So
rightfully so that nobody. All of LeBron's
exactly. Rightfully so. He's 40 years old now, like you got to do it now. And the fact that he's willing to do that means like that they're going to be playing to their highest potential, I think, if they're completely healthy in the playoffs, which is a great sign for Lakers fans. Do they have enough? That's the question. And that's what I'm going to be excited to see. I think that puts them in a contender spot for me just because of the respect I have for LeBron James. And the fact that he's still playing this good at 40 years old is crazy. It's just insane. So that's the reason why I think I'd put him as a contender in the playoffs. I'm excited to see it, though. I'm really, really excited. I think it's going to be crazy to see. Hopefully they're healthy during playoff time. All right, we can kind of transition into the last team that I got, which is the Clippers. The Clippers have been playing a lot better than I expected. I did not think this team was going to be very good at all, just personally. I really didn't. Like, it was just James
I like
Harden.
The formula.
Yeah, I mean, the formula is okay.
It's James Harden and guys who guard.
Yeah, guys who guard. And their defensive efficiency is near the top of the league. Like, they're playing at a very good defensive clip. So, Matt, I'll start with you here. Why don't you talk about what you've seen from the Clippers? I mean, Harden's been playing okay. They got some guys around him. It's been a lot better than I've expected. So talk to me about what you've seen.
Yeah, I love James Harden, so I've enjoyed like the Clippers that I've caught. Definitely a team, like I haven't watched enough of them. I watched one game and Harden was good. I mean, like his playmaking is crazy, and the fact that Harden's in a weird point of his career where he can't get to the rim anymore, but like he's just so smart and is able to manipulate defenses. It almost doesn't matter. Like he's still creating good shots for everybody, despite not being able to put that pressure on the rim. And when he's able to do that, and it's his scoring is pretty jump shot reliant now. He is shooting more middies than he really ever has, which is fun. And Zubac looks phenomenal. Like this is the best he's ever looked. I mean, a big part of that is just he's running more pick and roll with James Harden than he ever has. But he's always been a really good scorer down by the rim, and I think defensively he's continued to get better. Last year, his like rim field goal percentage on defense was nuts. A little bit cloudy. He's not exactly the best rim protector in the league, but you've got him who's more than competent on that end of the floor, and then he's surrounded by all these guys on the wings who all defend their ass off. Like Derrick Jones Jr., I think is maybe the best of the bunch, but it's not just him. Like you throw Batum on the floor, like. They're just kind of a basketball team where it's like, yeah, the star power's not there, and them not having Kawhi means like they're ultimately not a factor in any real way. But you've got like real NBA players who are going to try hard and like aren't idiots next to a guy that can create offense kind of on his own. So they're not a team like that you can take lightly any night that you play them, I think.
Mm-hmm. AJ, what do you got?
Yeah, I'll keep this brief and then kind of discuss a fun, underrated part of, and the only part that I'm looking forward to about the Clippers season this year. But they're on my do not watch list. I hate James Harden. So I'm just out. They're on my do not watch list. I might have to reconsider because I forgot that Jeff Van Gundy is their assistant coach.
Yep. He's a man.
And I love Jeff Van Gundy. But like, so maybe I'll start watching when James Harden is sitting or something like that. Fun storyline. Fun storyline of the year for the Clippers. The Thunder own their draft pick, and the Rocket, and they also, they own the right to swap with the Clippers, or they have the right to swap with the Rockets. So theoretically, they can choose who they want to swap with. So there's a very realistic scenario where the Clippers and the Rockets are right next to each other in the standings, and they're both eliminated from the playoffs. But they need to both keep trying to win so that the Thunder take the other team's pick. But then the Thunder might just say, screw it, we want to screw the Clippers because we have their picks in future years. So this will make them worse now and take their pick. And that's just very entertaining to me.
It is interesting. If you're not watching the Clippers, you're going to miss the Kai Jones renaissance.
Yeah, I'm good.
He's bald now. He still jumps really high.
Good for him, man. He still doesn't know how to play basketball.
Norm Powell's getting him up. He knows how to run to the rim and jump high, which is all you need to do next to Harden.
Norm Powell has been good.
Norm Powell is on my fantasy team, so I'm pro Norm Powell.
He gets buckets.
Anti-Clipper.
Okay.
Yeah, he's been a bucket so far this
year.
Chris Dunn? Yep. Chris Dunn. He was one of my favorites for a while. Coming out of the draft. He didn't turn into the guy I thought he would, but let's move into
around, good role player.
Yeah, he did stick around. I mean, he's got that defensive prowess, man.
He does.
What he is.
Maybe not a hit at top 5, but like you could do worse.
Yeah, that's true.
Could be Killian Hayes.
Yeah,
that's true. Well, his story's not written yet. The book isn't closed.
I love
on a
it.
new
I love
chapter.
it. Let's transition into the last thing. What I'm gonna do is what we can do is go through the East and the West, and let's just list your top 5 in each conference. So, Matt, I'll start with you here. Let's start in the East. If
From
you
a
had to go
contender
contenders,
perspective,
contender right now, contender perspective right now, what you've seen. Give me your top 5 in the East.
in the East, okay. So Boston's clearly number 1. Don't got to talk too much about that. From there, so before the season, this is interesting because I almost think like the next best team is probably the Knicks, but I don't think that they have the best chance to beat Boston.
Okay. Yeah.
And maybe honestly, maybe they're not even the second best team. But like I think that the 2 seed is going to be one of the teams that we're not quite expecting. Maybe we're expecting it now, but before, like, I don't think it'll be a Milwaukee. I don't think it'll be a Philly. I don't think it'll be a New York. Like, I think Cleveland or Orlando or maybe even Indy.
Yeah.
I haven't liked what I've seen from Indy, frankly, so probably not them. But I think Cleveland or Orlando could end up in that 2 seed. I'm going to go with Cleveland at number 2 right now. I kind of really, really like what I've seen so far, and I do think that they just kind of, the fact that they're, again, just a little bit off the beaten path in terms of how their team is structured and things of that nature, gives them a leg up on against a team like the Knicks, who are like, yeah, we have wing defenders too. But it's like, yeah, but they're not as good as Boston's guys, you know? The other team that I think has like any chance to beat the Bucks conceivably could have the 2 best players in a given series. Like, that's in the conference. And that might be like just what it takes to beat Boston. I don't think the Bucks are the 3rd best team in the conference. I think if the Bucks went into a playoff series against the Knicks, I'd take the Knicks. Against Orlando, I might take Orlando. Against Cleveland, I'd take Cleveland. But just in the sense of like, has the opportunity to make Boston sweat, I think that Milwaukee's probably 3rd there.
Okay.
And then after that, I mean, Orlando's looked really good. We didn't bring them up at all throughout the pod, but like Paolo's exploded a couple times. Also had a couple stinkers. Franz looks good. He's making more jumpers than he did last year. That's always nice to see. Jalen Suggs is phenomenal. Just keeps getting better. They're going to have one of the 3 or 4 best defenses in the league, and if Paolo and Franz can carry them to like an above average offense, that team's going to be monstrous. So I think I'll throw Orlando right after that. Again, given what we've seen, and then in that 5th spot, Halliburton just doesn't look like the same guy. Before the season, I was pretty high on Indy, but he just doesn't look like the same guy. I'll go Philly. Again, just kind of talent, you know.
Yeah.
Believing in
no,
that.
I like it. AJ, what do you got in the East?
Yeah, so I got the Celtics by a greater than 50% chance to walk out of the Eastern Conference, and that's even accounting for injuries.
Yep.
And if there wasn't injuries, I'd say like 80% chance that they make it out. I mean, they're doing this without Kristaps Porzingis. Like, that's just insane. And Matt and I were talking during the game, is like, if they would have 4 NBA Hall of Famers on their starting lineup, right now.
Yep.
With Drew Holiday, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Al Horford. And like, if they continue doing this for another couple of years, it might be 6.
Yep.
Which is just crazy to think. And I think
2 years they got to lose a guy or 2. I'm pretty sure. Just pure
not
afford it.
No, they can. Like, your pick would just be frozen, which is fine when you're winning a title. Now, my second best chance to get out of the Eastern Conference, I think, would be the Philadelphia 76ers. I just think that they're the most talented. I would have a toss-up, and I think that like they have something that would force Boston to do something they don't want to do on defense, which
they just put Drew on them.
Yeah, but like Joel Embiid could just shoot over.
Horford's always had Embiid's number a little bit.
Yeah, but I think forcing the Celtics to play Al Horford would be a win, especially with Kristaps Porzingis there. And I mean, Al Horford's 38, 37. Like, he has to slow down at some point.
Started finals games. Like, they just
I know. At some point, it just has to be done. I'm in, like, on a healthy Sixers team. I'm in. I just always have been. I like the idea of Paul George. I'm not picking them by any means. And then their toss up with the Cavs, like we were talking earlier, I would actually probably, if I had to redo it, I would say Cavs 2, Sixers 3, but I think it's close. And then 4, I would go Pacers, but that's only if Tyrese Halliburton gets back to playing at an MVP level. Like Matt said, like, I was high on them.
Fake. Starting to think it was fake.
I know, which is real bummer because he was like the most fun player in the NBA. He was the best offensive player in the NBA for 2 months. But he hasn't been that guy. What level of offensive player
can you be if you can't reliably create your own? Like to some degree, like when you really talk about that,
because he shot 43% from three and was hitting step back pull up and
I know
step back threes and pull ups and like
a little bit of that was outlier. The way that he was shooting, like it was ridiculous. He was Steph for a little bit.
It lasted for like 2 weeks, which is like wild, or 2 months. Sorry, 2 months, which is like a long time to just be on like a hot stretch. But I'm starting to think that was fake too. But I still think that they have the fourth best chance. And then fifth, I guess I'll put the Magic. I'm kind of just like I'm out on the Bucks. I guess just the lack of NBA talent. And the Magic, like I think that they're a really fun team, and I think that they have they could win, like beat a lot of those teams that I just mentioned. I just think against Boston specifically, like I think they can hang with them and get enough stops, but I don't think they'll have efficient ways to score against Boston. So that's why I have them at 5, even though I think that they're probably like they have a higher likelihood of making the second round of the Eastern Conference Finals than the Sixers or maybe even the Pacers. But like I just think that they're a worse matchup against Boston. And I'm out on the Knicks. Karl Anthony Towns, I just think is an unserious basketball player. I have strong opinions on my hatred for Karl Anthony Towns, and they don't have a bench. So that's kind of my logic there. And they just have
their big rotation is scary.
Yeah,
especially with Mitch Robbo.
Yeah, no, they're struggling on the big man department.
We're playing this dude named Huck Purdy or something like that, who I've never heard of until this year, but he had a sick dunk the other day. Something to keep an eye out.
For sure. With my contenders, I kind of just put it as like teams I've seen so far. So right now, Celtics are clear 1, just tier 1. Nobody can touch them right now. And then the Cavs for me are 2. And then I got Orlando 3, just from what I've seen so far. If Paolo can take this next step and really become like that guy and can carry the offensive load, I really like what I've seen from the Magic. And they've got so much defensive talent. They could throw so much at a team like Boston on the defensive end. So I'm excited from what I've seen from the Magic so far. I threw the Knicks 4 right now, and there's a lot I'm concerned about, but that's partly because I haven't seen the 76ers. What's up?
Can I just say one thing about the Knicks that I think would be pretty funny is this hitch in I have no idea like how he shot since game 1, to be totally honest with you, but like there's this hitch in his jump shot and it looks really funny that everybody was talking about. And I just think it would be really, really funny for the Knicks to trade everything that they had and everything that they traded for Mikal Bridges to trade for a guy that just can't shoot. I think that
he's just like Andre Roberson.
I just think that would be the most New York Knicks thing of all time. I forgot to bring that up. I thought
he's
that
like
was
62 true shooting right now. I'm pretty sure. I looked at their numbers yesterday.
Okay, so maybe he's fine, but I just thought that
the shot does look really, really ugly, and I think it scared the crap out of Knicks fans. I really do.
Yeah. Looked like Kyle Anderson in the preseason.
It was pretty bad. And with the Knicks so far, I mean, like they've had a good stretch on their schedule so far. Karl Anthony Towns had 40 the other day. We'll see with the Knicks. I want to see more. And I mean, Jalen Brunson just looked so good in the playoffs last year, and they got so much there that I'm just like, I got to keep them in this contender so far. And I haven't seen anything from the 76ers yet. I haven't seen Chris Middleton yet. So again, those two are like just on the bubble. I haven't put them anywhere. I want to see them at full health before I'm ready for either of those. So that just leaves the Pacers at 5. I'm a little disappointed with what I've seen from them so far with Tyrese Halliburton, like you guys are saying. Pascal Siakam looks solid. I mean, he's a guy, and I think he'll be able to keep them as contender.
Like they're not doing anything.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. Like, I think it makes them kind of a contender, but like, if he's your best player, then, you know, like a healthy 76ers is an easy 5 over the Pacers, you know? So, that's kind of my list in the East, and that can kind of move us over to the West a little bit. AJ, I'll start with you here. Talk to me about your top 5 in the West. I feel like top 5 in the West is a little more difficult.
I don't know. I think the East has 8 good teams. We didn't mention the Heat.
Yeah, true.
And then, so like, I think that they have 8 good teams. I think that they have 8 good teams that are all just as good as like a lot of the Western Conference teams. But I think my top 5 in the West. So my number one would be the Thunder.
Yep.
They have a 91 defensive rating right now, which is 8 points better than the next team. And I'll bring up the next team here in a minute. But then my number two is the Mavs. I talked about them earlier. I think Luka might be the best player on the earth. And they got, like, with Clay, like the addition of Clay, who's getting up like 11 3-point attempts a game, like, and they're running Spain pick and rolls where he's setting a back screen for Lively after live, like on
I was so
roll.
excited for that Spain pick.
Yeah,
I was
just
so
like,
excited.
how are you going to guard that?
Yeah,
like that's just so tough. And Kyrie dropping 35 on the Timberwolves, that's super fun. And then speaking of the Timberwolves, I got them at number 3. I think they're figuring out the Julius Randle fit. I think it's still a little clunky, but I mean, he does create a lot of threes, which is not something I realized when the trade originally went down. Even though they're not like necessarily for himself, for others. And then DiVincenzo, I mean, he's just a winner.
Yeah.
He played like, I love the way he plays. He's awesome. And like, I want to kind of see him take that next step. He's taking a lot of threes, which is kind of taking away from his drives, and his drives
like
are what
13 threes a game right now, I think.
Yeah, and I just like, I love the aggressiveness. Yeah, like he's shooting good, but like, don't lose your fastball trying to develop your changeup.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
you think
like,
it's a losing cat thing?
I think that there was an emphasis for him to get up more threes just because like that's what every guy is going to go into the lab and work on is like, let's get up more threes this year. And it might just, I hope that it's just an early season emphasis. And I hope he kind of like, because I think there is a place from where he's at now and a happy medium between where he's at now and where he was last year. So definitely. I think he'll find it. Hopefully that's this year. But DiVincenzo gives them a look, and it also kind of gives them an out in case Mike Conley's not very good, which he might be old now, especially to like close playoff games. And then my 4, I'll go Phoenix. I know that their record's fine, but like I haven't loved what I've seen. I expected a lot more of like Bud ball, of like better defense, shooting more threes, and I just haven't like seen that. But they can kind of get away with it based off their talent level. So I'm kind of just hoping like this is kind of my preseason still impacting where I'm at. And then with my 5, I'll actually go with the team that I've been very impressed with, and it might be slightly biased because I just want to talk about them, but it's the Golden State Warriors. I was listening to I'm obviously very worried about them right now because Steph's out.
Yeah.
So like surviving any significant time period without Steph would be like very scary. But I was listening to a podcast today, and it was Anthony Slater, who's a beat reporter for the Warriors, and he mentioned that in 2022 when they won the title, like they were kind of expected to be the level of team that they are right now, expected to be, but the difference was that they came out and they started defending really, really well, and right now they're second in the league in defensive rating at 99 points per 100 possessions. Yeah, top 5 in both. And I just think like if they defend like a top 5 level and you have Steph Curry on offense and you have Jonathan Kuminga who can score, and Wiggins maybe gets back to like Wiggins, and I mean, they just got guys, and I'm in on them. They're very, very deep. We haven't even seen DeAnthony Melton yet, who I'm very high on. And then they got shooters coming off the bench.
He got hurt again.
Okay. Yeah. So, like, that's the worry
his
with
back
him.
I think his back is cooked. Melton.
It might be. It might be. But I'm just in on them. I like their vibe. I like watching Steph Curry. So, like, do I think that they're actually the 5th best team? Probably not. But I think that they're fun, and I think that they got a chance because Steph Curry gives you a chance in any matchup.
Matt, what do you got in the West?
Yeah, the Warriors probably wouldn't be in my top 5, but just building up, like, they have been really good. They defended. They were a top 5 defense last year when Draymond played, right? Like that, they can defend when he's on the floor. He's just got to stay there. But like they still like Podziemski can't hit the side of a barn right now. He's still like a plus 17 on off just because that's the type of player he is.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there's still meat on the bone. I mean, Lindy Waters has been a revelation. You can find tweets from me when Lindy Waters was on the tanking Thunder. He can shoot it. But yeah, there's the Warriors are fun. I'm happy that you included them because I wouldn't have, but that's a good call. So number 1, yeah, the Thunder. I think the Thunder are my title pick. mostly because I don't want to pick a team to repeat again because I always do that and it hasn't worked in a long time. So I'm going with the Thunder to win the championship this year. But like their defense is just bonkers. They feel completely comfortable throwing out lineups where Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who led the league in stocks last year, he's a massive guard who's unbelievably fluid and athletic and covers ground and is incredibly smart. And he is the worst defender in the lineup. And that lineup is still good at offense. Like, that's crazy, you know? But yeah, like Caruso, I don't know that he's even really completely found his footing yet, but he's still just as impactful as he's going to be because he's so good at defense. And, you know, the same can be said for Dort, all those guys. Chet is playing, I don't know, top 5 center level, right? Like, relatively easily. I don't know. Like after Jokic, Embiid, and like AD, it kind of like Chet's right there. Because he's 90% of the offense that like a Sabonis or a Cat give you, and he's like deep.
No, I think he's better than both those two guys that you mentioned, but there would be a conversation between him, Wemby, and Bam. Yeah. So like he's right there in that second tier.
I love Bam. Yeah. Like I love him, but like Chet offensively right now looks like a different level.
Yeah, he's awesome. Yeah, I'm in total agreement with you. Chet is a stud.
Mm-hmm.
He's unreal. So yeah, Thunder are clearly tier 1 to me. I think Mavericks are number 2 for me still. I still like the makeup of that team. Lucas kind of had a rough start to the year. Had that huge shot against Minnesota, which was awesome. But
that was his only 3 in the game, though. Yeah, that was his only 3 in the game, though. So yeah,
it was sweet though. It was sweet. Kyrie was really good in that game, but. Yeah, they're number 2. That's kind of how I had it before the season as well. That hasn't deviated one bit. After that, it gets a little bit tougher for me. I'm not like we already talked about Denver. I just don't think that they have the horses this year. I was really into Memphis before the season. They haven't really looked the part yet. Edey doesn't look like the guy I kind of thought he could be.
One thing with Memphis, real quick, is like they're not like playing their guys. Like Ja Morant's playing like 27 minutes a night. Jaren Jackson's playing like 26 minutes a night. Desmond Bane's playing like 27 minutes a night. I don't know if that's the plan for the whole season or if they're just like, let's go through 1 month without any injuries. But like Desmond Bane's already sitting out later tonight. I don't know. I just think that's interesting. And it's something to kind of monitor throughout the season. And if they ever actually ramp them up or not, or if they're thinking something different than the rest of the NBA.
That's a good point. They've always been a team that kind of relies on their depth or like feels comfortable relying on their depth. But like Ja playing under 30 minutes a game is pretty severe.
Yeah.
So I think in third, like, again, not a team that I love, but I guess I'd probably go Phoenix. Like them, Ryan Dunn being what he is, literally out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like swings playoff series and like literally saves them. Like this team was essentially at a dead end. Like, they're not really going to be able to add talent. They don't have enough defensively. Like they don't have guys that you trust on both ends of the floor. There comes Ryan Dunn at the end of the first round, literally magically learns how to shoot a basketball over a summer. And now he's, like, I don't even know, like a good starter probably. Like if this is real at all.
For context, for people listening at home, Ryan Dunn last season took like 5 3-pointers the entire season, and now he's taking over 5 3-point attempts a game from a 3-point line that's like 4 feet further back than the college line.
Yeah.
I just think it's like it's unbelievable.
One of the worst offensive players I've ever seen in college, straight up. Like one of the worst, at least like as far as like scouting this guy, like, oh, this dude's gonna be in the NBA. Let me go check out where he is. It's like, oh. He can't dribble. All right, word. He can't dribble or shoot. Okay. But he's a menace defensively, and if he can shoot at all, that's a fantastic pick. Straight. I don't even know if I could give them credit for the pick. I don't know how on God's green earth you could have expected. But after that, Minnesota. Just because, like, I think Minnesota defensively can still get to like a really high level. The Julius Randle fit is kind of interesting to me, and he's also just always kind of been terrible in the playoffs, which is a concern as well. But he's also probably relied upon a bit less on this team. But I love DiVincenzo. The Anthony Edwards jump shooting thing is something I'm monitoring as well. Like he's a great shooter, but like you don't want him to fall in love with it this much. Like you're right, his fastball is still getting to the rim. He's still a dominant athlete. And especially like late in games. Like last year, that was my big concern with Minnesota as well, was just like, what does Anthony Edwards' decision-making look like late in games? And I still don't think he's the best passer. Like, I don't know. as much as everybody loves Anthony Edwards, and I'm with everybody, like he's so much fun, and could be like the face of the league type of guy. I don't know that I think he is as good right now as most people. Like there's multiple other two guards
I agree.
I think are better players
Yeah.
today. So I don't know. That's Jaden McDaniels looked better offensively, and from what I've watched thus far, like the drives look a little bit better, which has always been something that he's improved upon year to year. So I'm at 3 right now. I'm at 4 right
4.
now. The fifth spot, I guess I'll just go Denver. I mean, like you get late in the game with Denver, and they're probably going to out execute you just because Jokic is that level guy. So
Yeah.
I still will always kind of like I'll always leave a light on whatever matchup Denver ends up with in the playoffs. Yeah, they're going to be outmatched. The team they're playing against is going to be better, but it's still going to be like the other team's probably got to bring it to win that series.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. No. I have the same list as AJ. When looking at it, I had the Thunder first, and then I had the Mavs, Timberwolves, and then I'm pretty high on the Suns. Like I was considering putting them higher, but it's early. Like I want to see.
They run into the
more.
players who suck problem.
Exactly, and that can be kind of tricky there. And I talked to myself into the Suns 2 years ago, with their star power and stuff like that. Like, and it looks a lot better. I think Bud puts them in the right pieces. Another new coach trying new things to make them work. I feel like they'll be a really good regular season team. Again, I'm excited to see what's going to happen in the playoffs. We've seen Bud in the playoffs, and we've seen he's been slow to adjustments, and then there's been other times where he's made the adjustments. So, like, we'll see exactly what happens with them in the playoffs. So I'm excited overall with them there. And then I'm putting the Warriors 5 just because the fact that they're top 5 in offensive and defensive efficiency to start the year. Like, that's really impressive to me. They're shooting the ball really, really well right now, which is fun. I think Buddy Hield adds a different level to their offense.
Getting a lot of them up.
Getting a lot of them up. And like we talked about with the Celtics getting a lot of them up. It seems like to be a trend in the NBA right now of getting more threes up.
Wild that a team's NBA 3-point rate goes up after losing the second best shooter of all time.
Yeah.
That's just
wild.
When
they lose Dame.
Okay. He's not a Splash Brother.
The Warriors to me, the Warriors to me have just been super impressive. And like you were saying, they have so many guys that can play. Like Trace Jackson Davis is in the starting lineup right now and playing pretty well. Like they got a lot of guys that can really play. And I like what I've seen from the Warriors so far. And like hopefully they'll continue. They're fun to watch. It's always more fun when Steph and LeBron are relevant and playing on good teams. So I'm excited to see if the Warriors can continue. Well, guys,
quick Warriors question before we get out of here.
Okay,
I feel like every team Buddy Hield's been on up to this point has been like they're like he's sick, and then 2 weeks later it's like all right, this is enough. He can't guard anybody. The shots aren't going in quite as much. This is not so much fun. The Warriors, though, I don't like. Is there something to just kind of because of how like their offense is, and it's kind of all hands on deck, not one guy dominating the ball. Like it's very normal that everybody on the Warriors touches the ball in a possession, probably more so than just about any other team in the league. I wonder if there's anything to like they're going to keep Buddy Hield in rhythm all the time, and so he's just going to be good. Do you think that that's possible?
I think that that's very possible.
I do too. Yeah.
And sometimes you just get shooting through osmosis and momentum. So anytime you're on the same team as Steph Curry, because shooting's like it's very mental at the end of the day. Like we don't really consider that too much. I personally am of that belief, and I think like sometimes shooting next to the best shooter of all time helps with that. And like if like as a defense, when you're worried about like Buddy Hield. Like when you're worried about shooters on the other team, generally Buddy Hield's at the top of the scouting report, and now he's second.
Yeah,
like that just makes a big difference at the end of the day, in my opinion. So yeah, I do think that
Halliburton's fall off coincides with when they lost Buddy Hield, low-key.
True,
exactly.
True. I also think with Hield on the Warriors, it's like they're used to so many shooters on their team, like the coaching staff. So they're going to put them in the right situations to be able to get those threes up, and they're going to work them out the right way to keep his shot the right way.
I have one last thing that's unrelated. That is related to basketball still, but is the most fun story in the NBA the last like 5 seconds of a quarter of the Celtics games when Peyton Pritchard gets subbed in
Dude.
and you know that he's shooting. I mean, I crack up every time. I love
It's
it.
unbelievable.
It is.
And like
I
every
love it.
time, like you turn on League Pass, every announcer loves to bring it up. They're like, "Oh, Peyton Pritchard,
This is his
They love
time.
saying
This is
it.
what he lives
Yeah.
for.
oh, keep an eye on Pritchard here."
Like, I just think that is the most fun story and such like a cool thing for like one niche
Yeah.
player to just be like known league wide. This is the last.
He's basically a kicker. He's like an NFL kicker. Like they just bring
Yeah.
him in at the end.
He's made
Like-
60 from 4. I saw him in warmups.
Yeah.
He was making from
Yeah.
60. I just love that storyline and I love continuing to monitor it. So like anytime, like if you're flipping around League Pass or like your national TV game that's under a minute in the Celtics game, just like keep it on there
Keep an eye on
or
Pritchard.
flip to the Celtics game and look for the Pritchard watcher.
You know who I've liked is Ty Jerome. He's become an
He's
NBA
a
player kind of out of
Fun
nowhere.
player.
Yeah, I like it. Didn't realize he was 6'5". I was always under the impression that Ty Jerome was like small.
Deceptively tall.
Yeah.
He is deceptively tall.
All right,
I'm
guys.
good now.
Well, hour and a half later, I love these pods. We're getting all the NBA talks. And that's going to wrap up the show for today. Thank you guys so much for listening, watching, wherever you're at. These guys will hopefully be back soon. We'll be keeping up the NBA content throughout the year. So that's going to wrap up the show for today. I will see you guys next time. Peace.